Welcome to Spirit Rescue Talk. Hi, my name is Melinda Wolfram, here with my co-hosts Amy Major, Gigi Brickville, and Cynthia Maroon. Our topics of discussion ranges from spirituality, paranormal, and metaphysical. Please make sure you read our disclaimer there at the bottom, uh, because our content should never replace any professional training or guidance. Feel free to contact any of the hosts here on Spirit Rescue Talk for one-on-one support. So today we're going to be discussing NDEs, which is near-death experiences. And so who would like to start this amazing topic today?
Well, I have to say, it's one thing that I was going to mention earlier. I look so tiny compared to you, Melinda. When I was watching the videos, I look tiny.
Well, and, I've noticed that. And I'm like, I don't know what the deal is.
It's okay. I'm really not that small, but it just was so funny when I was watching the videos. So I was just like, and it just hit my awareness again. I'm like, whoa, I'm a little one on
Yeah,
this.
and when I'm sitting here looking at you guys look like you're further back, but I'm far back from my computer. I don't know what
Your
the
computer
situation
just
is.
loves you. That's what it is.
Maybe it's my camera. Maybe
I was
that's
going
what
to
it
say your
is.
camera loves you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is, Gigi. That's it.
That's it.
But I know
I
last
have
week
no idea.
that Melinda and Gigi, you both had talked about your own personal kind of experiences with NDEs. I have one with my husband that he gave to me, but I would love to hear Melinda's story first, just because it seemed really powerful.
Sure. So I've had two. One whenever I was 8, and one whenever I was 17. So the one when I was 8, I got where I had a problem where I was sick, and we couldn't figure out what was wrong, and then kept seeing this face, and it would come to me from outside, and I would see it through the window, and so it was like a white face with black eyes, and and it would make faces at me. So at first it scared me, but then was taken to the hospital because I was starting to run a fever. I wasn't eating. And the only thing I remember about that is when I remember getting to the hospital, and I remember the doctor talking with me. And then that's all that I remember of that. And the next thing I remember, I was looking down on myself. And of course, I was a kid, and it scared me. I didn't know what was going on, and I kept seeing a light. It was very bright. And, every time I would look at it, it didn't really scare me, but I wasn't for sure what was happening. So I think, a lot of times when it happens to you when you're a child, it may bring in some fear things because you don't know what's going on. And then the next thing I knew, I was back. And that's what I remember of that one. Now, when I was 17, it was when I was pregnant with my son, and I went into labor, and I went to the hospital, of course, and it was me and my husband, and we were young, and they had to do an emergency C-section because they lost my son's heartbeat. And so they did an emergency C-section, and then I remember them taking me to the room. Everything was okay as far as I knew at that point, and I kept asking where was my baby, and because I was so tickled. And then I started running a fever, and then I got to where I wasn't feeling well, and I would tell the nurses, I was like, I don't feel good. And this is what they said to me. They said, you're just acting this way because you just had a baby, and you're all worried because you've gained some weight. And I'm like, you're full of crap. I said, I am not feeling well. And I said, I've got a fever. They called in several doctors. And finally, one was saying, yeah, there is something going on. We just can't figure out what it is. So it was like the next day. And my husband went to work, and I told the nurses I needed to speak to him right away. So they get him on the phone for me. And I said to him, I said, something's not right. I said, I just want you to promise me that you will make sure our son knows who his mom was.
Mm.
And so he was like, why are you saying that? He said, I said, just promise me. And he says, of course, I promised, I will make sure, but there's not, you're fine. And the next thing I remember was I was looking down, on myself laying in my bed. The phone was laying beside of me, and I was thinking, well, I was just talking to my husband. What I really didn't understand what was happening at first. And then the next thing I could vaguely hear him, like it was like he was in a distance, and I could hear him screaming my name. But I kept looking at this white light that I went toward the light. So when I got there and I went through, it was like it wasn't really a tunnel. It was like more for me, it was more like a light that radiated and it was all around me. And then it was like I could look down and it was like when I was looking at myself, it was like I was getting farther and farther away from the bed. So then I get to a one point where the light was the brightest. And then all of a sudden I could see what looked like levels as I was looking down. I couldn't see the bed anymore. All I could see is these levels, and it was like dark. And then as it went up, it got lighter and lighter. And I was like, I'm not going down there. I'm going up here. And that's what I remember. I was like, I'm not going. No, no, I'm not going down through there. No. And so I went up, and it was like, then it like opened up, and it looked like Earth, but everything was more vivid. Like the trees were more greener, the flowers were more vibrant. And I was standing there and I was looking, there was a building, and I was like, what is that? That is a unique looking building. So I went over and I looked up, and the first thought I was like, I wonder if this is the records, because I knew at that point, I knew I had passed. I knew that. And I was very accepting of it. I was not afraid of it. And as sure enough, I looked up and it said records. And I thought, oh, good Lord, I don't know if I want to go in there or not, because I was like, I'm not for sure what I'm going to find. But I walked in, and it was like hallway after hallway, and there was like I would see people's names that I knew, and I was like, so I start looking for my husband, and because I was for my frame of mind, I was like, well, maybe he's here with me because that's what I wanted in my reality of it. And of course, I found his name, but it was like his birth date was there, but no end date. And then I found my name. And it was like, what was weird to me about it was the end date for me, it was halfway there, but the year wasn't there. And so I didn't know. I was like, okay, so what is this about? Then I heard a voice, and the voice said, my child. He says, it is not time for you now. You've just had a baby. You've got to go back. And I was like, I didn't want to go back. It was so peaceful and loving, and it wasn't all the worry. That's what I was like. There's no worry here. There's everything is of love and light here. And this is, I want to stay here. And then the voice was like, no, you have got to go back. You've got a lot of work to do. You've got to go back and tell everybody, what you've experienced here. And the voice was like, you've got a newborn child. Your baby will need you. There's going to be a lot of things that your child's going to need you. And so on that account, because I was so excited about being a mom, I started wanting to go back at that. So then the next thing I remember, as I was like leaving the light, and that's the way it felt like to me, I was thinking, oh gosh, am I going to that dark place? Because the light was getting dimmer and dimmer as I was coming back. The next thing I remember, I woke up laying in that bed, and my husband was standing there, and he's like, she's moving, she's waking up. And what seemed to me was like maybe 5, 10 minutes. And then when I woke up and I was like, what is going on? Why is everybody standing around here? Because it was like the whole family was there. And he said, you've been gone for 3 days. And it was
Wow.
like 10 15 minutes to me. And they had intubated me. They had done, the whole thing to try to keep me alive. And I was like, no, I've only been gone for like 10 minutes. I said, I don't know where you guys have been. And, he said, she's back. That mouth of hers, she's back. And so, and that was, it was just like, when he told me I was gone for 3 days, I could not believe that,
Yeah.
because it was just like, to me, it was like just minutes. And what ended up was wrong. I had a blood clot, and I had blood clots in my legs, in my stomach, surrounding my heart, and I had a pulmonary embolism.
Wow.
And the doctor said it was a miracle that I lived through that.
Melinda, that's an amazing story. There's a lot to unpack there. And I think I want to start with records. There might be people that don't understand what that is. Do you want to explain a little bit about what that term means and what you find in that place?
From what I seen while I was there, and the records is where our stuff is kept on us through our whole life. It's from when we're born until we die. It shows everything that we've done, everybody we've encountered, everything good or bad that we have done. And the way I felt when I was there was like, okay, I'm going to have to face anything that wasn't really what I should have done, but that's the way we learn. But also the good things that I had done. So that to me, that's what I felt. I was going to face what my life had been, and the things I did and things I didn't do, or the things I should have done differently. I just felt like it was all there for us to try to look at what we've said or done that we could have done differently, and our lessons that we should have learned while we were here.
Hmm. I just think it's interesting that that showed up. That was one of the first things that appeared for you in that transitionary state, because a lot of people don't even see that until much further on in the transition, but yet here it is, and it appeared for you immediately. And to
Yes.
me, that there's no coincidence in that. And do you have any idea, or did you have any intuition or any message that kind of explained why that appeared for you so quickly?
No, not really. I mean, I often wondered about it, but I never really thought, well, I guess it was just meant for me to see that. To me, I started feeling like it was for me to be able to say, I did see that. It is there. And this is what I felt it was a message for everybody to know that our records are there. We will see that when we pass. And that's the only thing that I could gather from that.
Hmm.
Sometimes I find that, when we have spiritual experiences, that the symbology is to help orientate us to know what's going on. So if it's in your awareness or expectation that that's something you'll do in your past, well, it sends a very strong message for you to see that place to know what's happening. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned something before that, you were hearing your husband and then you had seen the light and you made the choice to go to the light. What helped you make that choice? Did you have a feeling or?
Yeah, I felt like, there was something there that I needed to know about. Something was pulling me there. And I felt like, it was something that I would possibly bring back because, I did not want to leave my husband. I did not want to leave my newborn child. But I felt like I was being drawn there for a reason to bring back something, is what I was thinking. But once I got through the lights, then I wanted to stay.
Right.
But I was told, no, you got to go back. So,
Right.
Interesting. And we may
Very.
have to look at that further for you, because like you felt like you were going to find something out. And when you first appeared, you were presented with pure information, because the
exactly.
records are pure information. So maybe it was your soul's desire to find out information in the light that made the hollow records appear for you, because that was your symbology of information that was coming through. That may have been the reason.
Right. Yeah. And because one of my things I always said to my husband is, if you go first, you better be waiting on me, vice versa. And then he did pass away in 2011. And so I told him, I said, you better be waiting on me. And so I still say that to this day. And I told him, I said, don't you go to those records. And see, that's always been in my mind is about the records. And so, I wonder too if that's maybe a reason that, what we are thinking processes and the things that we think are the most important in our life. Is that why I was presented there? It's
Mm.
because, I was so adamant to my husband about, don't you check those records? And, and that makes me wonder, if that was my reality that I wanted.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
It's such a powerful connection, and it's filled with so much, I'm not going to say symbolism, but there's so much information there. Have you journaled what happened?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's also a lot of symbology there because what I've heard is that your transition state has a lot to do with your soul's personal desire and soul mission. I mean, think about what you do here in the world. You find information. And the first thing that was on your soul's mind in your transition was about finding information. So I think, if you put all the puzzle pieces together, that might be one of your soul's biggest missions is to access information and to share it with others. And that soul's mission kind of led the way in your transition state as well.
Right. And I thought also, because back at that time when I was 17, I was starting to look at the psychic detective work. And so I feel that has a strong connection to that too.
Mm. It's all how it's all connected, you know?
It's really amazing, isn't it?
Of course it's all connected, right? Because, everything is. That was an
Exactly.
amazing story. Thank you. And Gigi, I know you had talked about a little bit about your experience before. We'd love to hear the full experience, but we want to I have a feeling we're going to be able to tie it into what you do in your life now as well.
Yes, I've had 3 near-death experiences. One was when I just turned 5, but I don't remember it. I just remember afterwards being able to see grids, energy grids, and things like that. There was a big shift in that. And it actually shows up in my lifeline, there's a break in it, right where that happened. And I have another one I don't know if people believe in lifelines, but I have another one that's happening right now. And that is me being treated for breast cancer. And in our native culture, we have what we call our life chart. It's already mapped out. We have an exit point. So we know, we don't personally, sometimes we do personally know. But within the last 3 years, I would say I've had two more experiences. One, I just happened to collapse when I was upstairs, and I felt everything just go tunnel small, and I I didn't have the same experience what Melinda had, but I relate to it. This one happened in 2023, and everything just got dark, and I was literally in a dark area, like a void, but nothing dark or scary. In shamanic work, one of the things we have to do is we have to merge with the elements, each element in journey work. And it was the same experience as merging with Mother Earth. It was dark, it was comforting, and I was waiting. I was waiting. I was waiting to see where I was going to go.
Mm.
And the next thing I knew, I was opening my eyes and my husband was staring down, had EMTs around me. I said, "What happened?" He said, "You stopped breathing for about 4 or 5 minutes." And it ended up I was okay. Believe it or not, they ran all these tests. It ended up it was okay. And shortly after that, I've had what I call shifts in gifts and abilities, which happens to all of us when we come through near-death experiences, extreme sickness. The breast cancer treatment right now has presented me with a near-death experience, which was something I've never even seen in my life or even heard of. I had received too much chemotherapy. And so I could literally, I'm feeling my body dying from too much. And I was resting in bed and I said, is this my exit point? Is this supposed to be my exit point? Is this when I'm supposed to leave? Because I felt a crack in my spirit. I didn't want to be there. I just didn't want to be here. And I just felt I need to go. And my guide's spirit, the great spirit, I don't know who it is that spoke to me, said, this can be your exit point. And I looked up and there was a door appeared up. And there was beautiful white light shining around it. And there was a little small window in the center and there was light shining through it. And it says, you can leave if you want to. If you want to give up, you can leave. And I sat with that for several days. And I talked to my family about it. And I didn't know what to do at that point. I didn't want to go, but there was something, I thought of you, Melinda, drawing me. And so I went to rest again. And again, I went into whatever state I went into. And I'm walking. I have guides all around me. And the door, I'm coming up to the door. And they said, you have a choice. And I looked at the door and I said, no, I'm not leaving. I have a family here. I am in service to others. I have a path I still have to follow. I have to complete this. I'm not leaving. It's not my time. And as I walking by it, the door started to fade and disappeared. And when I spoke to one of my shamanic teachers about it, she said, yes, she said, this has happened. This is actually described by a well-known shamanic practitioner about the door appearing and about the light around it. She says, I've had the same experience. So has this other woman who's well-known. And she said, I only know of 3 of us that have had it appear. And so it was interesting because it's still the same purpose, which is if we're meant to be going, we're going to go. It's just presented to us in different ways. I feel this last thing that happened, there's been a shift in me. And it's nothing bad. It's actually beautiful. I've embraced the lessons because I'm on this path, because there were things I needed to learn and I was just too doggone stubborn to learn it. And so it had to be presented to me in one way, and it's through breast cancer it's being presented to me. And I had 2 choices. I could ignore it, or I could be open to it and receive the lessons, the changes that needed to be made. And I'm not talking about diet. I'm not talking about, these are just changes within myself that will continue to help save me and keep me on the path I need to be on. It is one of the most heart-filled journeys, healing journeys that I have been on. And to see what I've seen and to feel what I feel and to know what I know has humbled me so much that at this point in my life, I have learned how to step out of ego. And by stepping out of ego, I feel that I am able to be in service to others better. So there was a lesson for me in all these different NDEs. So that's the 3 I've had. I think I've actually asked, I've journeyed to the spirit realms and I'm like, I've gone to where I need to go and I'm like, can we pick another shamanic initiation that's not quite so painful? Can we do something like a really cool dream or a book that comes to me or a movie? I'm like, I don't
that'd be
want to do this. So I got told yes. So I'm hoping that yes is going to keep going once I'm through with this.
Oh, I do have a question because I know you had mentioned a door, and quite a few people watching this are going to have sort of a, a strong imagination as far as what that door looks like. Was it an actual door that you could describe, or was it more of a corridor
It
of
was
what?
an actual door. It was an actual door. It was a wooden door. It was a very simple wooden door. And it had a window, a small window in it. And all I had to do was open the door and walk through.
Like a front door,
Yes,
a house? Oh. Was
yes.
it a color or was it a light wood?
It was old wood.
Interesting. Because it's like you try to look at the symbology of everything because there are no mistakes and
Right.
everything appears exactly the way it is, and it's all connected to your individual soul. So it'll be very interesting to kind of do some digging in there to kind of find out, because a lot of people are going to sit here and go, "Oh, is that what all the doors look like?" And I would say no,
You're
that everyone
right.
has their own individual door that they go through. Like everybody has a different door they walk through in the front of their house or apartment or something. It's all very custom to you as an individual as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
So,
You're absolutely right because the shamanic teacher I'd spoken to, when I described my door, she's like, mine was completely different.
hmm,
So you're right what you're saying.
well,
Gigi, I found that very moving to listen to. So heartfelt, so authentic, and the way you were expressing yourself there. And when I think about your door, I think about what you first said, which was, I was in a void in one of your experiences, but it was more like the element of earth, right? And
Right.
then here you have another element that the door is made of that you can walk through to transition. So you're right. Nothing is by accident. Everything has meaning. And you mentioned something in your story about, I knew it was my time, or I knew this was serious, or this was my time where I could go because I felt my spirit or my soul crack. Do you remember? And I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, what did that feel like, and what did you mean by that?
I want to say that I'm tolerant of pain. I'm pretty darn good at tolerating pain and everything. This felt so awful, and the whole thing just weighed down on me, and it felt like it was just never going to end. And so it's kind of like when you get broken a little bit or get broken, period, because there's no little bit or a lot, you get broken. And it, it it just it just made me question, was this an exit point? Was I being given an exit point? Or was there something that shifted in my life chart that this was my exit point? And it's one of the hardest things to describe because it was just like having your heart broken. You don't know how to put it back together. I couldn't figure out how to put the life back into my spirit.
Mm.
I couldn't figure it out. I just felt completely lost. And, I'm going to my mother, who's an intuitive and a spirit communicator. I'm talking to my husband, and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And they're like, you're not meant to leave. I've had so many tell me it's not your time. And this, I keep getting the words, this was a test. This was another lesson for me to see, where was my strength? Where was I? Where was I on my path? And as soon as I made the decision not to go to that door, everything just filled in for me. The crack healed in my spirit. Everything just healed, and I all of a sudden was strong, and I'm like, I can do this. It's one of the hardest things to even describe. I don't think there's enough words in our vocabulary to describe it or even the feeling. It was just, it's like hitting rock bottom a couple thousand times.
You know what's
And
amazing about what you just said, and I'll go to you, Melinda, is you just said that you were given a choice, that you felt like your spirit had cracked, like you could endure no more, and you did not know that it would all fill in for you. You didn't know when you made the choice, and you made the choice anyway. And that really, really speaks to your resilience and your character. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, Melinda. Go
And
ahead.
oh, you're fine. I just wanted to put in there that, Gigi, your experience and mine, even though they're completely different and everybody's will be, we are on this path for a reason. And, as you stated, the ego comes into play. And I am a firm believer that when that happened to me at 17, it made me look at life differently than if I hadn't had that. Because when you're 17, you think you're invincible. You think that you've got a whole life ahead of you. You could do this and you could do that, and you're going to be fine. And what it really done for me, it made me feel like I questioned, and I would talk to my husband. I was like, why did that happen? And what was the point? What am I supposed to be doing that I'm not doing? Is that what it's trying to show me? And then, I started looking and started working on doing cases on missing persons. And that's where, I feel that was helping me to cope with the fact, because I told my husband, the fact that I could have passed and not have been there, it made me feel like the loss that someone feels when someone goes missing. So I think that intertwines. So
Yeah.
I completely get about the ego thing, because I truly think that is a reasoning too on my behalf, is to show me where I needed to be just to help others here.
Yes.
No, I think a lot of people question, since it was brought up with both of you, a lot of people question, do we have exit points? Do we have contracts of our birth date and our death date? Is everything predestined? And I did ask my guides this, and I did ask Spirit this, because I've been working with a lot of Spirit through the years. And the answer was very difficult for them to answer, because they couldn't give me a yes or a no. What they could say was that we had a plan, but the plan most always doesn't go according to what we originally had created for ourselves. That the plan is sort of the master blueprint of our lives, and we have these points in our lives where we say, this is when we're going to be alive, this is when we're going to go to school, this is when we're going to have a family, there's many different focal points that we focus on, that our souls want to stay in alignment with and stay on course. That's the reason we have guides, is to keep us focused and stay on point with these things we want to do. Our death is just another point that says, okay, we feel that we've come and we've done everything we wanted to do, and this can be our exit point. But because there's a lot of people out there that feel destiny and fate and which one overrides the other, and what's true is that your destiny is the plan, but your fate is whatever happens based on all the decisions that you make, from all the choices you were given, and the results that happen from those decisions that you make, which may take you off of that destined point of exit. You may actually leave this world at a time you weren't supposed to, because of decisions that we make. So our fate is what actually happens to us, regardless of whatever our destiny was, because fate is nothing more than just an end result of the decisions that we make. So Spirit's like, you could live for 100 years if that's your destined plan, or you can leave at age 3 because you did something really stupid and a rock fell on your head and you died and you didn't get through the rest of your life, and we have to start all over again, start from scratch. And they said that my life, my very last life that actually happened, that I died as an infant in my last life due to SIDS, but it wasn't the destined plan. I wasn't supposed to die, but it happened anyway. And that's why I came back 5 years later as me, because they wanted me to jump back into another life to continue the plan, because it was affecting so many people that I wasn't allowed to stay in the light because I had a destined plan. But it can happen where we do leave this world even when it wasn't originally in, the master plan, as they say, of our lives, our contracts, everything that they say. So it is what it is. That's why we are given free will. It's just to kind of be thrown here into the world and say, okay, go figure it out. And sometimes we don't always figure it out. Sometimes we really mess up and it doesn't go according to plan. And I've seen a lot of guides on the other side and their eyes roll in the back of their head like, here we go again. We got to start all over. And they get really frustrated sometimes. But, it isn't easy when people have the near-death experiences, for some, because it can be very scary. For some, it could be enlightening. For others, it can be life-changing for many. But I know there's a lot of people out there with very, very weird stories. When Gigi talked about the void, there's one thing to really, really emphasize is that you were still consciously aware of yourself, regardless of the environment that you were in. And the environment that you're in the transition process is always changing, in constant state of movement and flow according to what energy you're holding, what you're expecting, your belief systems. But the main thing that stays true and constant is that you are self-aware even after you leave the physical body. And I think that's the one thing that's liberating for so many people, is to know that you still exist after your physical body dies. And I think that's why near-death experience stories are so fascinating for so many people, because it clears up the fear of death. It clears up the idea of thinking that you don't exist anymore after your physical body's death, which is probably one of the greatest gifts that anybody can be given, is no longer being afraid of anything. It allows somebody to live the life of their dreams, because they're no longer afraid to do this or afraid to do that or afraid to go after that one thing, because, of fear. Fear controls us and keeps us in a constant state of entrapment. And I think having the stories of near-death experiences, I gotta say, it's such a gift to give to other people. It's a hard thing to have to experience, but to give people the story is a gift, because hopefully they can clear up a lot of fear of death and transition for a lot of people. Don't you think, Cynthia? I can feel your energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, what stands out to me in both of your stories is there was choice. And, we talk about universal laws and free will and having choice. And, some people may think, choice stops when your journey stops here, but that isn't so. Both of you talk about still having choice. And I'm curious, did you have a sense that you would, that in anybody's, like some of you, Gigi, you talked about guides, being with you. And did you have a sense that you could make a wrong choice?
No, there was no wrong. There was no wrong choice. The choice
No.
was going to be the choice. And this, like I said, this unfolded a new path for me. And I firmly believe that, as Amy said, our life charts, blueprints change. We may have the set goal there, but there are things, it's kind of like having to take a detour in the road when you're trying to get to one place. We'll end up in the same place, but we just had to go a different way. And so, yeah, there would be no wrong answer.
No. And that's the way I felt too. It was all like free will. free will was there. We could make our own decisions like we do here. So whichever way you decide to go, that's the path that's meant for you. So I feel the same way as Gigi. No, it was just all your decision. And so it was just like here, where we have our choices to make. Now, on that, guys, I want to say that if you do have any questions or anything that you would like to ask any of us, we do have an email now. It is spiritrescuetalk@gmail.com. So send all of your questions there. And if you have something specific for each of us or for the group as a whole, just send that stuff there and we will address that on the next Spirit Talk Radio. I'm thinking we're on radio, guys.
Well, we're on
Spirit
the
Talk.
radio one of these days.
That's it. That's what I think. I'm already putting us there. So there we go. So now, our next week, we are going to explore the different states of spirit form. Amy, do you want to touch on that a little bit? I think that you're the one that can give the most on that.
Well, I definitely want to talk a lot about, because, you know, when we talked about near-death experiences and the different states of transition, we were kind of discussing quite a bit before this started that the level of awareness and belief systems and your own consciousness really pave the way of the environment in which you're in when you're in that transitionary state. But we also kind of talked a lot about there are many people in many different transitionary states constantly, all the time, which many people get confused about, thinking, oh, there's a ghost in my house, or how can I tell if it's a ghost or a spirit? So I really came up with the idea we really need to talk a lot more about the different states of the human soul and the different states of transition and what it's like to be in the astral plane as a human soul, and how you can tell the difference between whether someone's still in transition, if it's just a, you know, a collective consciousness, if it's a fragmented part of a soul that someone's still alive, or if it's a spirit all the way in the light, all the way to master level. There's many different ways to tell the different states of being in astral form. And since they talked a lot about they were consciously aware of themselves in that state of transition, I thought it'd be a good segment to go into, okay, well, how can you be in spirit? You know, what is your form in spirit? You know, what's your level of awareness depending on the different state of transition? Melinda, you talked a lot about those levels, going up and seeing the darker ones. We could talk a lot about as well being in spirit form and going into those darker levels and what that state of awareness and existence is like as well. So the many different forms of spirit, human spirit.
Okay, guys. So go ahead. Who was wanting to say something? Go ahead.
I just said that's going to be great. It's a great topic, and I'm really looking forward to discussing it.
Yes. Okay, guys. Well, again, if you have any questions, please send it to spiritrescuetalk@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.